with a greetings, everyone. It's Naomi Wolf, and I'm here with a super special pantheon of heroes, amazing human being, amazing guest. I just have so much love in my heart. I hope this is not inappropriate, Michael, but I as a friend and admirer, love every single one of the Teachers for Choice, Bravest for Choice, Finest for Choice, all the for choice in New York. I love them to bits. And I love you and yours too. And I'm happy to have you on. And Michael Kane has done so much. He's worked as a New York City public school teacher for over 13 years and is a steering committee member. This may be a little bit of an old bio, but you'll update me if I don't get everything in, of New York Teachers for Choice, a grassroots organization of educators and parents that is 100% opposed to all medical mandates to maintain employment. So Teachers for Choice sued the New York City Department of Education with their attorney, Michael Sussman, and won a court-ordered stipulation pertaining to in-school COVID testing and privacy rights. Kane has been a proud union member and active supporter of the United Federation of Teachers for his entire career. I'd love to know how you feel about that now. He's a union delegate, served on union consultation committees, lobbied in Albany on behalf of the UFT on multiple occasions, and protested with rank and file union members against a former mayoral administration in New York. And you can learn more at nyteachersforchoice.org. What am I missing?
So that bio was back when I still had my job as a teacher, and it was before I left the union. It was before I got fired. It was before the UFT, the New York City Teachers Union, sold us out. So yeah, that was a little bit old of a bio, but since then I've come to work for Children's Health Defense. I worked for some political organizations during the presidential campaign, supporting Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and his historic run for president. And right now I'm actually also the director of advocacy at Children's Health Defense. It's a newly taken that position, which kind of feels great. It kind of feels like I'm coming home. Children's Health Defense saved me and my family when I got fired. My family was in a bad spot. And so it feels good to be back with them, with Mary Holland and Brian Hooker and just an amazing team over there. Yeah.
Doing so much for our country and our families. Children's Health Defense, everyone, if you're not supporting them, you really need to. They are the vanguard for medical freedom and freedom of all kinds. So thank you for that. I'm so glad they've got you, and I'm so glad they've got you in an advocacy role, because so much of the problems are legislative and so many of the solutions are legislative. And too few people realize that, in my opinion.
I agree. There's so many. How many times have you heard, like, oh, I don't do politics? Well,
right?
Do you wake up in the morning? Do you eat breakfast? Do you breathe in and out? You're a political animal. That's just it. Everything has some sort of political context to it. And either you're in the game or you're just not in the game. You're not a player in it. It's an unfortunate reality, but politics is pervasive for human beings. So.
Absolutely. And I was just thinking, when you were saying that whether or not you think you do politics, politics is doing you in various ways. And nowhere did we see that more clearly than in the fight that you have been fighting so bravely, you and your first responder colleagues and your teacher colleagues in New York City and New York State, the fight for medical freedom. So let me pick up where I left off. Most recently, I have been kind of back in touch with you because you've been active, kind of mentoring, I would say, supporting, fostering a new crop of candidates who are mandated teachers, people who represent first responders. Jimmy Wagner, whom I interviewed, who founded or co-founded the Brooklyn Republicans Club, estimates that there are 100,000 either mandated and angry or mandated and quit teachers, firefighters, police officers in the Brooklyn, New York area, which is really a make or break political constituency. So can you talk about that for a little bit before we go into the main subject of the day, which is your latest legal battles?
Yeah. So there are tens of thousands for sure of voters in New York City that have been impacted by the mandates in various ways. Statewide, I mean, just as one example, there were 36,000 medical professionals that quit or were fired over the COVID vaccine mandate statewide, right?
Mhm.
Let alone how many were forced to get it, how many got fake cards, how many have buyer's remorse that they got the shot and
Mhm.
they got injured, or they're just angry that they were forced to do that to keep that job. This is tens of thousands. For sure, there's no question about it. Is it hundreds of thousands? I'm not sure if it reaches that level, but it's a little bit difficult to tell for sure
Yeah.
because it's unclear just how many fake cards there are, just how many people have buyer's remorse, all of that stuff. And plus, there's other issues today. And some people believe we got our jobs back and we're all good.
Right.
There's no problem. So that's a real issue as well, too, because we've won some court cases in the past. And since we've won those court cases, that headline from 2022 comes back, reinstated with back pay.
Hmm.
But New York City appealed. Mayor Eric Adams appealed. So
What?
none of us get to go back. So even though we've had victories, it's in the appeal process. And in New York City and New York State, they defer to the state. They defer to the city. The city or state wins over your victory. So that's what's happened. So some of it is a messaging issue. We got to let people know we're still out here. We were still fired. We can't go back to our jobs. If we go back, we have to sign legal waivers, waiving our rights to sue. We have to start all over. We lose seniority. We don't get our positions. We might not even be in the same borough or the same building. Some of us have to interview again. I lose tenure as a teacher. So they say, yeah, come back. But there's no reinstatement that's happened. So it has created a certain movement. It has created a voting block.
Mhm.
And the medical freedom voting block is a real thing across the country. And that's one of the things that we're seeing from these new candidates like Athena Clark, who you interviewed, who's from Brooklyn,
Mhm.
District 46. That's funny, actually, today I just put up a post about Athena, not only that we've endorsed her at Teachers for Choice, but also that we're calling for people to donate to her. She needs donations, especially in district, right,
Mhm.
in Brooklyn, because that helps her with the matching funds. There's this 8-to-1 matching funds in New York City, but she needs support from anybody that supports medical freedom as well too. She has a few $1,000s right now, and she's out there as a mom who refused the shot, who has her kid, who's
Just
battling big bad New York City.
yeah.
And yeah, we're working with these groups, and also we have seen that the Republican Party has woken up largely, right? They've woken up. They kind of been like, oh my God, look at all these voters here all of a sudden. And they're on the right side of it largely. And that's in New York City as well, too.
Mhm.
The majority of New York City Republicans are calling for fired workers to be reinstated and back, reinstated and compensated for us refusing to get the shot and losing our jobs over it. So oh, and I also want to say I'm speaking for myself and Teachers for Choice, not necessarily Children's Health Defense here, when it gets this political and endorsing candidates and such. But it is an interesting moment because now we're in this mayoral election,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of energy that's happening around that. It's national news because Zoran Mamdani won the Democratic primary. You've been speaking to people about this. He's a Democratic socialist. He's also a complete fraud. He's hardly even a socialist. He's interested in power. We don't know who the real puppeteers are there.
Right.
It's a scary thing actually if he does come into power, and he could because he has the Democratic nod, and in New York City that means a lot. But we have a four-way race and a lot that's happening. And I think our voice as fired unvaccinated workers is becoming more important because this could be a close election. They
Mhm.
could be looking for every vote that they could have, every percentage point. And we are coming out voting on this issue.
Mhm.
Thousands and thousands of us are.
Wow. So let me go back a beat or two. There's some things about the battle, especially that you guys fought, right? Like, the bigger battles around medical freedom since 2021 have their own craziness. But I live in Brooklyn part of the time.
Yeah.
I've lived in New York for 20 years. I don't understand how any democratic machine or any political machine could think it's a winning move to infuriate the most beloved New Yorkers upon whom all of our safety and well-being and our kids' future rests, the firefighters, the police, and the teachers. And I can't calculate what was happening in Mayor Adams' brain when he appealed your group's very legitimate victory to be reinstated. Help me understand the political calculus there. Why
Yeah.
why are the Democrats choosing such a loser issue as the hill that they want to die on, metaphorically?
Yeah, it's a great question. Nationally, it's definitely a loser issue for the Democrats. I think we saw what happened in the 2024 election. We saw that Trump takes on Bobby Kennedy, which takes in the medical freedom vote. They call the medical freedom vote, and it came right,
Right.
and that was probably the critical vote
Oh,
that flipped the election, right?
totally.
Because
I
everything
said
else
this
was so
million
tight.
times. Yeah.
Yeah,
MAGA doesn't have the numbers without Maha. They just,
right.
no
And I'd
disrespect.
say some people estimate the Maha vote nationally around 5%. That's
Mhm.
enough.
Yeah.
That's enough. That's because
Totally.
we're so close and razor thin in so many of these critical elections. So
Right.
you see that happen. New York City's deep blue.
Hmm.
It was the epicenter of the pandemic, whatever you want to, and
Yeah.
whatever anybody thinks about that, that's what everyone says
Right.
about it, right? And there was the psyop in New York City was big and bold,
Yeah.
and the fear, it was big across the country. In New York City, it was pervasive. It was,
Totally. It was the lab of
yeah.
manufacturing the ideology for
And
sure.
not only that, you bring up lab, now disgraced Governor Cuomo, Andrew Cuomo at the time as the governor said, New York, we will be the laboratory for the vaccine. That's a quote. He said that at the height. So, and remember, that's when he was coming out every day in his suit at noon, and they said that like women were dressing up to watch him. Do you remember that when
I
he was
do
like this,
remember
like
that.
the most important, like, oh man, did he love those days? And then he fell from grace. But when that happened, and that was going on in New York City, the fear that it put into people completely turned the unvaccinated into lepers. It
Right.
was really difficult here in New York City to stand up and to say it. And one of the most difficult things to do, it's a famous saying, I'm gonna butcher it, but it's you can to try to prove somebody that they've been fooled, to try to prove to them, no, you were wrong, is one of the most difficult
Yeah.
things to do, right? And so that's still staying here in New York City. In New York City right now for the mayoral race, we have four people that are running. Three of them are Democrats, two on independent lines because they couldn't win the Democratic primary, and
Hmm.
then one Republican. There's a fifth independent, but he's not competitive right now. Jim Walden, shout out to him. He's a good guy, good man. Only Curtis Lee, with a Republican, is calling for reinstate and compensate
Wow.
fired unvaccinated workers. The other three either avoided, or Zoran Mamdani, Democratic Socialist, says, no way I'm bringing you guys back. I have to have the ability to reinstate that mandate if we need it again. So he is completely opposed to us. Like, and publicly, he says so.
Oh my God.
His
Some,
base,
can I just say some communist, some man of the people? Like, that's crazy. Well,
yeah.
no, it is a communist thing to do, to say, I need the ability to restrict all of your rights in the future in case I feel like it. But
Yeah,
please,
what did he say? We must maintain the integrity of that public health mandate.
oh my God,
That's
that's
his
such
quote.
a globalist sentence. That's disgusting.
Yeah, that's a real nice way of saying we're going to inflict ridiculous tyranny on you and your family, right?
Whenever we want, but please go ahead.
Whenever we want, right? Whenever the mandate needs to come again. So that's where Zoran Mandani comes. Curtis Sliwa has come out firmly on our side. He's been firmly on our side for almost 4 years
Wow.
um, about this issue. And it's real interesting because he's a Republican, but he truly is a working man's candidate. Truly is. He's truly talking about how to make quality of life issues better, how to make New York City safer, how to make New York City more affordable, how to increase the available jobs to people,
Mhm.
how to stop unfettered immigration and the nonstop sucking of resources into this direction and into this area.
Mhm.
So it's fascinating because we're seeing this realignment of political parties. We don't know exactly where it's going to go, but in New York City, we're seeing the Republican is really and truly the man of the people and the working class candidate. Now, Zoran Mamdani is claiming to be, but the
Mhm.
truth is he's really more into power. He claims to be a man of the workers. He's a man of the union bosses.
Oh.
That's who he's actually listening to. I'll give you one example. He claims to be a socialist. What
Mhm.
type of socialist wouldn't support government subsidized Medicare to retirees? Zoran Mamdani's the type that wouldn't support that because the retirees in New York City have sued for years because they have a promised benefit of Medicare. Well,
Mhm.
they're trying to switch that to Medicare Advantage, which is basically a privatization of it. The retirees are 200,000 strong. They've rallied, they've sued, they've fundraised, and they've done so much to push back on this. And they've become political. They've gotten every candidate to sign on to a pledge to protect their Medicare and do a number of other things. Everyone has signed on except Zoran Mamdani. And why has he not signed on to protect these seniors that were promised this Medicare benefit? He has not signed on because he's been endorsed by the teachers union and by the, what is the other union called? The largest union in New York City. I'm forgetting the name of it right
The
now.
truckers?
DC-37.
Is it the truckers?
It's DC-37.
Right.
They are one of the largest. They are the largest union in New York City, and they are pro Medicare Advantage. The union bosses, are trying to screw over the retirees, and Soren wants the endorsement, and he wants to play power politic footsie games with the big bosses. This is not even a socialist, Naomi. If the term socialist has any good connotation to it, he's not even that. He has none of that. He's a fraud. He's 100% a fraud, he reminds me of a young Barack Obama. Remember Hope and Change? And it was, who's this new guy? Wow, he's attractive. And man, I love hearing him speak. And he's so smart and he's going to change. It reminds me of that. And that didn't go too well. So I'm actually very nervous about it.
We thought it did until we realized it didn't. But I hear you. At least some of me and my friends did for a long time. No, I hear you. It's a formula now, right? I mean, AOC, I mean, you can identify them a mile away. Super telegenic, highly trained, Gavin Newsom, saying all the right things, blah, 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 blah. It's a bow of paper thin wrapping paper and tinsel around the same old disgusting globalist exploitive oligarchical policies. And the DNC is incredibly good at doing it. But I trust, I mean, what's so interesting, I was actually just telling a loved one who's interested in politics about this. And I was saying, there's this interesting realignment going on in New York. And I mentioned Jimmy Wagner and Teachers for Choice, in which what would have been a working class Democrat 30 years ago has nowhere to go and is moving into, and the Republicans are wisely kind of opening their arms to them. What would you say to that? Is that accurate? Because what I was going to say about Zoran Mamdani is I would have expected, all right, let me give me a minute to paint a scene, if you will, because it's really in my head. I was getting my hair done at a Black-owned, Caribbean-owned hair salon. And I was the only white person in the hair salon. I live in a majority Caribbean neighborhood when I'm in New York. And this white upper middle class volunteer or campaign worker guy walked in, handed a bunch of Zoran Mamdani flyers, glossy, well-produced, to the shop owner, and basically said, put these in the window. And there was a wave of revulsion that I felt from what must have been 60 people in that space, all of them independent proprietors, right? Small business people. And, each one had their seat, right? So it was people who really know what it means to be a small business person in New York. And it was this wave of revulsion, and they all said reflexively a version of the following: we need to look at it. We need to read the platform. We need to think about it. And the vibe I got was that this guy was being racist. That this guy was like, well, you're people of color, Zoran Mamdani is kind of brown, you'll vote for him. And what I felt, and I could have been totally overreading this, but I'm just picking up little things that people in this community are saying that are leading me in this direction, plus the conversations I've had with Athena Clark and her husband. But it was a revulsion that also explains the shift of Black men toward Trump, right? And working men toward Trump. Well, working men of different colors toward Trump. It was like, don't take us for granted, right? We're so sick of the Democrats condescending to us, assuming they have the Black vote, assuming they have the Latino vote, assuming they have the working people vote, and not doing anything, engaging in policies like open immigration and, no borders and outsourcing manufacturing jobs that are horrible for working people, brown people, black people. So I just wanted to describe that because I guess what I'm trying to say there is, are you hearing any sense that working people, especially from these different demographics that the Democrats have taken for granted for so long, like see through Mamdani?
Oh, there's a number of constituents that do for sure. There's a number of traditional Democratic voters that not only see through them, but are very frightened about them.
Hmm.
That's for sure. When you talk about a Caribbean business, when you talk about Black communities, one of the things to keep in mind that's important is Eric Adams is still in the race. And Eric Adams is the current mayor. I think he's a terrible mayor. I don't like hardly anything that he's done. I think only Mayor de Blasio might be the worst mayor in New York City history, and number two worst would be Eric Adams. But he is a Black man that has a sizable support. The polls are showing him he can't break past 13% in the past like 7 or 8 polls. This is why he didn't run in the primary. He did it because he knew he'd lose. But
Wow.
when Zoran won, everyone went, oh my God, what are we going to do? I guess Cuomo or Adams, you guys have to stay in. And they said, well, we do. We have independent lines. We're still here. So everyone's freaking out. And a lot of support is still going to Eric Adams. In talking with some experts earlier today, actually, we feel that the base of Eric Adams' support, although it's low, being that it's around 10% is where it seems to be polling consistently lately, is largely in middle-aged or upper-aged Black voters in New York City. Mamdani is not really appealing to traditional Black New Yorkers, especially native New Yorkers that have been here for a long time. He's got the gentrifiers. He's got the transplants. He's got the like young white voter who has kind of been screwed over, right? Like their life isn't that great. They're not going to have what their parents and their grandparents had, and they're realizing that. And he's messaging right to them, just like Bernie Sanders did. And to Zoran's credit, I think he'd be a terrible mayor and destroy the city. He ran a great campaign. He ran an absolutely fabulous campaign. I don't know why, but he just left New York City for a month going to Uganda.
What's that about?
Find that odd. I guess he needs a vacation for the next month. But he did. Meanwhile, you have Curtis Lewa that's on the subways in the streets with the people every single day. So it is certainly odd. But his message, you know what he was? He was the change candidate. Totally. He made sure everybody saw him as the change candidate. And who was he running against? He was running against disgraced establishment Democrats, and no one wants that. Right. No one wants establishment Democrats or establishment Republicans. Everybody wants change. So Zoran was really able to get at that. But I don't see him going for traditional Black New York voters, especially native New Yorkers who like spent their whole lives here and such. Caribbean voters as well too. I don't know that I see that. He has gotten some big endorsement from in certain people, like Assemblywoman Rodneyse Bachat. She's the Brooklyn boss. She's the Democratic Brooklyn boss in Brooklyn. Ooh. She's Haitian. So she was for Cuomo, and then the night Zoran won, Zoran called her and said, I need you on board. She got right on board almost instantly. So you have some of that. But is that really resonating with her base? Is that really resonating with the women, with the individuals that you were talking to me about, that you saw in there, that looked at that and said, we're not just throwing that in our window. Right. We'll look into it and we'll get back to you. So it's a very fractured race right now. No one knows what's going to happen. Some people have called for a pledge. They've called for all the free market candidates should take a pledge. Come September, let's do a poll. Whoever wins the poll stays in, and that's the one person we get behind to beat Zoran, because Zoran's such an existential threat. I think Cuomo's agreed to that. Jim Walden, who's an independent, came up with that idea. Eric Adams hasn't, and Curtis Lewa says absolutely no way. They're all the same. Curtis Lewa is saying, they're all part of the problem. I'm the only one that has the chance to save New York City. And he's been doing a good job of convincing me that actually is the case.
So I asked Jimmy Wagner of Brooklyn Republicans Club this question. I'll ask you. I've always kind of loved Curtis Lewa, right? But he's, for people who are not familiar with New York City politics and personalities, he's been around forever. Yes. He started something called the Guardian Angels, and they ride on the subways, basically protecting people. And he's awesome, but he's also a very flamboyant character
Yes.
and sort of a fixture. I guess, and I don't think he's got government experience in his bio. Doesn't matter. A lot of great people don't. But do you think he has the administrative chops to run the city if he did get elected mayor?
I think he does, and I think he knows how to assemble the team around him that he could do it. I think one of the big people he would go to is Joanne Ariola, a councilwoman from Queens who's the minority leader right now. Has been a huge supporter of Bravest for Choice, of the firefighters, teachers, everybody that was fired over the mandate. She's been pushing for us in a major way and knows how to deal with Democrats. You know, she knows how to work across the aisle. She knows how to make friendships and deal with those she disagrees with in a really fantastic way. Curtis would be coming in not just on his own accord. He has a huge support base. He has tons of politicians that support him, and he's going to be able to assemble a real team of real New Yorkers to solve these real problems. So, might he have struggles? He might, but after seeing Eric Adams and Bill de Blasio, I mean, no one can give me that argument. You can't give me that argument like, well, Curtis Lee was not going to be a good. We've just had two of the worst mayors for the past 12 years. That I
We
mean, that's
barely
what we can
survived
say.
them. The two of them, we barely
Yes,
survived.
I think you used the right word there is survive. Like we've almost just barely survived them and what's happened here. So I feel very confident about Curtis. And another thing, people have said like you have no shot, you have no shot. The last two polls have changed everything.
Really?
Curtis has gone from being in the teens to being in the low 20s. And in the Harris X poll that came out not too long ago, him, Cuomo, and Zoran Mamdani were in a statistical tie. And Eric Adams, where was Eric Adams? 11%, 10%.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure this out, but could Sliwa and Cuomo join forces in some way?
I don't think that's going to happen. But who knows what's going to happen because it's a wild election season. But I do see in a four-person race where all four of these people are polling, like none of these guys I'm talking about are at 2% and 1%. They're all breaking 10% and higher. You have three Democrats splitting the vote.
Yeah.
In New York City.
That's kind of amazing.
Right. So when you have and you have Curtis Sliwa, who's currently surging, who has totally changed where he's at, and no one is grinding harder than him. No one's up earlier, no one's on the subway sooner, no one's going to more events, and no one else is speaking to the issues the way Curtis is. Zoran is kind of, and he's got his base, but he's in Uganda right now.
Right.
We'll see him come September or whenever he decides to come back.
Wow. Well, then let me ask you this. That's so interesting. Kind of exciting, retail politics.
Yeah.
A lot of all the candidates that Jimmy Wagner showed me he's supporting, or that Republicans for, Brooklyn Republicans Club are supporting, they're all I think fantastically interesting candidates.
Yeah,
all of them are walkaway Democrats. I don't know about you, but I seem to remember that you're a walkaway Democrat. Jimmy Wagner is a walkaway Democrat. I'm a walkaway Democrat. Secretary Kennedy is a walkaway Democrat.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that in this election and with the group of people that you've described? Why have people like Athena Clark and Jimmy Wagner and you left your lifelong home?
Yeah, I mean, up until 2022, I guess, I had voted Democrat or Green basically, my entire life. I was a union delegate, as my old bio we read at the beginning of this show. I was a union delegate. I identified with being part of the teachers union. I had the shirts and the hats and the bumper stickers, and I was lobbying in Albany for them. And I really, truly loved it and loved what the union protection provided for me and my family. And my whole family comes from unions. So I had all of that. And then 2019, the Democrats repealed the religious exemption for children in New York State. And I knew something was wrong with that. It didn't directly impact me or my family, but I knew something was wrong with that. And I was involved with that. And I paid attention. And then COVID came. And then they all turned on me. All of this whole party apparatus, the unions, they were nowhere to be found for me. They were actually my enemy. They actually made sure I lost my job. And then 2022, Lee Zeldin's running for governor
right
in New York. He's on Long Island. And John Gilmore and Rita Palmer, two legendary medical freedom activists in New York, were like, "Hey, I think Lee's on board with us because we did defeat the mandates. We got 4,000 people at Albany. We were doing a lot, and it caught Lee's attention, and Lee came full on board to the medical freedom agenda that we had, and that for me was a big deal because Lee was kind of an establishment Republican in D.C." But he realized what was happening, and he realized this is a huge voter base. I got to get on. And so I came out.
Well, I think also like this is wrong. I can't go along with it. Right? The mandate.
I think so, but I also think it was a political calculus as well too. Because I think there's politicians that say this is wrong, and man, I wish I could say something, but I just can't say something.
Right.
That happens. I know that happens, and I think it was this is wrong, and there's so many voters out there now. We can do this, and he ran with it. And I was at the Caribbean Day Parade in Brooklyn with Lee Zeldin. And we had like 50 people, very, very diverse, walking through the parade with a Republican running for governor. I endorsed him on the steps of City Hall. It was the first time I endorsed the Republican.
Wow.
So that we were so abandoned. We were so alone for a period of time. We had some Republican heroes, nationally. Massey was there the whole way saying the right stuff. We have Dave DiPietro here in New York, upstate New York's always been a hero on the right side of these things. But there were so many who were like, very meek and very quiet. And it took the people having 4,000 people in Albany, having 40,000 in DC for them to say, oh, okay, and to the Republicans' credit, they did. They woke up. They got on the right side, the overwhelming majority of them. So we stand with those who stand with us. When Democrats stand with us, that's great. We support them. And that happens on issues at times. It's not happening broadly, but on certain issues, we're getting Democrats sponsor resolutions or bills that are good for us. There is definitely one who's very important. Jamie Williams, shout out to her in Brooklyn. She's a Democrat, and she's our biggest hero for sure. So is Senator. There's a senator out in Long Island as well too, Monica Martinez, who's sponsoring some of our bills. So it's not just, for me anyway, it's not just party line, it's issue. The Republicans tend to be better on the issue, and when the Democrats are good on it, we applaud them, we support them. That's how, for me, it was medical freedom that brought me to support so many Republicans.
Yeah, I cannot believe that's not a Democratic issue, but here we are. Maybe they'll wake up.
That's Obama. That's Obama. What really happened is when Obama came with Obamacare, one of the deals that got cut was that Big Pharma was going to be able to charge what they wanted, right? Another thing, so that's one thing. Another thing is Obama brings in the National Childhood Database of vaccine records.
Right.
Obama as well, too. And in that fray, it becomes okay and becomes cool for Democrats to take Big Pharma money. And that's where it shifts. It all shifts. And Big Pharma was on both sides. And after Obama, it all shifts there.
Right.
It's easy to sell to Democrats, you're saving lives with this. It was an easy sell. A lot of them really believe it,
Right.
You know that.
Wow, that explains so much. Okay, well, before we go on to the Supreme Court activity, thank you for that incredibly riveting and powerful explanation. I just have one question about New York, okay? There's been a lot of attention to the voting machines since 2020, as there should be. And I, initially was not persuaded this was an issue, and I looked into it and consulted with my developer, and he explained that all these electronic machines you could just give the credentials to the back end to anyone in, Kiev or Beijing or whatever, and they can go in and change things. And I know enough about digital technology to know that he's right. So I've concluded that ever since 2005, when the machines were rolled out, we really don't know who won American elections. And I think that what Trump is doing, and we I hope helped with the draft bill to get rid of machines and to bring back paper ballots. Part of his platform, of course, is cleaning up voting, making sure that you have an ID to vote, that you're a citizen, all of it. And I'm really interested to see what's going to happen, because I think there have been a lot of fake victories, over the years, all in the Democratic direction. I mean, something that's been fascinating to me is that in state after state, the people, the electeds who stop are draft election integrity bill are Democrats, which is really embarrassing. So going back to New York, New York is blue, 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 blue. I'm not sure, I'm really not sure anymore that New York is so weirdly blue. And there are a lot of people in New York who, again, I'm just thinking about this community I'm in, people have been working hard for decades, coming from the Caribbean, from African countries, born African American in the United States for generations in Prospect Lefferts Gardens. And then overnight, it was a Venezuelan cartel community, because of the massive numbers. And the people who were complaining to me were like elderly African American ladies who were terrified, just, weaving their way between the speeding, whatever terrifying electric bikes. Yeah. So where I'm going with this is I don't believe that the machines in New York are okay. I remember voting in the Village when I lived there, and it, for years it was this big chunky thing, and it made it was mechanical, and it made punched a hole, and you could count them and you could look at them. Well, they phased those out. Why? Right? If there was nothing wrong with them. So where I'm going is you guys could have a victory in November, or someone we don't expect could have a victory. And we might never know because everyone in New York and in the boroughs votes by voting machines. What are you guys doing about that? Or what are the Republicans doing about that, if anything?
So the first thing I would say is that South Brooklyn, where Jimmy Wagner's from and where we've been spending a lot of attention on, in the 2021 election, I think it was, there was a big red wave that just keeps expanding, right? So we've seen 60, 61, 62, 65% voter turnout in these districts, which is huge to get that type of, and what you had was a lot of people saying, we're done with this. We're fed up. I'm a registered Democrat. I'm voting Republican. And that's happened. So we've seen a lot of Republicans from South Brooklyn go up into Albany, go into city council. So we've had that happen. So I do not believe all the elections are rigged, because why is that happening if all the elections are rigged? I think there is rigging, and it's on multiple levels, and they play it out to the polls as well too, and they save it for whatever's most important for them.
What do you mean?
They don't do it on every election. If you're going to do it on every single election, you show your hand, right? You're going to expose yourself. If it's like, wait a minute, like everybody in this community voted for this person, how did that person win? They need to make sure there is some form of legitimacy, at least an appearance. Right. So from my close analysis of this, I'm not seeing things being rigged across the board.
Okay, good.
I think it's when it really, really matters that they do. I think 2020 really, really mattered. I think they needed Biden in. The shot had been designed. It had been made. Good job getting it made. Now we're forcing it on people. Trump's got to go. I could be wrong. I don't know all the facts. I haven't examined it that closely. But they needed Biden for that reign of terror. He was ready to do it. And so I think there is a lot of evidence that shows that election was historically anomalous, but for sure, for a whole bunch of reasons. But I don't think they do it all the time, because we do see areas, even in deep blue New York, that are going red, that are having Republicans win. I'll tell you about some of the more subtle but pervasive voter fraud that goes on. They have poll workers, and lots of people tell me this. When people come in, that they say, oh, you're registered Democrat, you have to vote Democrat. Like, poll workers say stuff like that to people. Like, and there's more of it than just that. When you talk to the operatives that are in the communities that see what happened, there is a lot of very simple voter fraud or voter tampering that happens, that doesn't have to be behind the scenes, that doesn't have to be high tech. That can just simply be the people that are working that precinct are loyal to these candidates that got them that job, and they're simply going to say, no, you have to vote down. And there's a whole, but I could introduce you to some political operatives in New York City that could tell you a whole bunch of tricks like that are done all the time in polling stations throughout New York City. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. I believe you. I mean, that is genuinely shocking.
Yeah, I
I'm
agree. My
sorry.
first word too.
I'm
Yeah.
just processing what you're saying. And I mean, again, it's also very heartbreaking to me because in New York, the people who have been poll watchers and poll workers are these, elderly ladies who love the Constitution and love, being able to help people vote. And it's so altruistic. And if what you're saying is true, and I believe you, that is a very bad, dark sign. And
Well,
I'm persuaded.
and of course, Naomi, it's not all of them. I'm not saying every poll worker
But it
does
doesn't have
not
to
all
be
of them.
all, right? It
Have
could
to
be
be.
1 in
Exactly.
10, you could swing the election, or one precinct, or one key. I mean, it's these are razor thin margins, as you've been saying, and they can be, especially in an off year. I mean, this is what I keep telling people. 50 people can swing an election depending on what else is going on. So
100% correct. That's right.
yeah, you really have to vote, and you have to make sure your vote is counted. I still, given all of that, I hope there are lots of war room type poll watchers, like citizen watchers in November. And I hope also that I'm going to try to do this. I'm going to encourage people. I'm going to look up the law, but people should photograph their vote, and we'll do what we did in the general and have an archive where people can upload their own vote just to keep an eye on, have a record. Because I'll never forget, I flew from Florida to the middle of nowhere to vote for Lee Zeldin, the first time I voted for a Republican. And I'll never forget, I went in and there was a male and a female, I'm sorry, a Republican and a Democrat kind of poll worker, affluent community. This was upstate. And I offered my ID, and the Democrat said, "Oh, you don't need that." I'm like,
Right.
I want you to have it. I want to know that I'm voting correctly. And then when I voted, there was this whole drama about, like, you fill out the paper with a pencil, but then you put it in a machine and it's never heard from again. And I know enough about digital technology to know that you can set the algorithm to count anything once those pieces of paper are in the machine. So I do hope that there's some pressure to get to paper ballots in New York, or at least a system to record people's votes if they choose it. And I can think about that more.
Yeah, I just want to encourage everybody that is in New York City or has friends in New York City, vote for Curtis Sliwa. It is not a wasted vote. The polls have shifted. No one else in the race supports medical freedom, supports right to bodily autonomy, or will bring back fired unvaccinated workers. Don't believe people who are telling you he's got no shot. He does. He actually does have a shot, especially in this four-way race and how he's polling now. What we need to do is come out for him. We need to show up and we need to push for him. So, just my opinion, anyone in New York City, vote for Curtis Lee.
And when you say New York City, you mean all the boroughs as well, right?
That's correct. New York City would be Manhattan, the Bronx, Staten Island, Queens, and Brooklyn. Yes.
And if you don't live in those areas, but you have friends in those areas, you can send them this interview. You can send them Curtis Lee. We're nonpartisan, so we're not supposed to endorse anyone, but you could certainly inform them about all the candidates, including Curtis Lee, and tell them Teachers for Choice really forcibly endorses that candidate. That's shocking that he's the only medical freedom candidate. All right, now finally, in our last few minutes, just before we go to that, what else can people do? Can they donate to him? Can they donate to you? Can they
definitely. You can go to teachersforchoice.substack.com. Right now, we're featuring Athena Clark, who's she was a fired teacher that didn't get the shot. She's running for office. She's a dynamo. She's really important. We're going to be featuring Curtis Sliwa. We're going to have our endorsements and all the information about him out there. So follow us there, and we're going to get all that information, how you could donate, where the events are going to be. All of that will be available at teachersforchoice.substack.com.
Fantastic. Thank you. Lastly, something exciting is happening with the Supreme Court, right? Talk to me about that.
Well, we hope, right? So I, back in 2021, with my attorney, Sujata Gibson, backed by Children's Health Defense, we filed a lawsuit in federal court in the Southern District of New York City because my religious exemption to vaccination was denied, along with 9 other educators and teachers. And that has taken almost 4 years to go through the court system, where we lost at the Second Circuit Court of Appeal. Bar two of our plaintiffs go back down and get to retry their case. They might get compensated, but the majority of the plaintiffs, they've dismissed the case with prejudice at the Second Circuit. They waited almost 2 years to give us our hearing. They're just waiting out the clock. And so because of that, our attorneys, that include Children's Health Defense, Alliance Defending Freedom, and Nelson Madden Black, they have filed a cert petition with the Supreme Court, which is asking the Supreme Court to hear our case. And so that was filed on the 21st of this month, I guess 2 days ago. It was filed. Originally, that case was called Kane versus de Blasio. I call it Kane versus Adams now, because the first respondent on the case for the city of New York is Eric Adams. So he could end this today. He's the mayor right now. He could come to the table, renegotiate this, bring us back, reinstate us, and compensate us. He is not doing that. So for everybody, for a period of time, well, Eric Adams was doing Tucker Carlson and Dr. Phil and PBD and all these other conservative podcasts. This man is not aligned with your values. He is if he is changed so much, why would he still be keeping us out of work the way that he is? Tell you another thing, Naomi, just a week ago, not even a week ago, an undocumented immigrant who was here illegally killed a cop in New York City. And Homeland Security Secretary Noam came out and said, this is tragic, but let's put blame where blame is due. This is the mayor of New York City who is to blame for this in his sanctuary city policies. Now, that's remarkable, because no one in the Trump administration has criticized Adams for months, for 7 months, until that moment. And I'll tell you a couple of reasons why. The number one reason, Adams is a loser. He's barely breaking 10% in all of the polls. If there's one thing Donald Trump does not like, it's the smell of loser anywhere around him. That's the first thing. But the second thing is, I also hope that the Trump administration is waking up to the fact that this man, people have been saying, make Adams great again. They've been putting MAGA signs around New York City. I think that is over. I think that whatever that spell is breaking, because he's not popular. His polls are terrible. And Curtis Sliwa is surging right now. So just to wrap up on the Supreme Court case, we don't know what the Supreme Court is going to do. We're currently looking for organizations that support religious liberty to submit amicus briefs to the case. And we'll see. The Supreme Court might take it up and they might hear it. They might not. If they don't, this one case would be over, but we have others for fired workers that are still working their way through the system. I would even say, though I can't say much about this, there are some I am so excited about Harmeet Dillon heading up the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice. She is already intervening and writing to fired unvaccinated worker cases across the nation.
Wow.
Shout out to Harmeet Dillon. She has signaled clearly this is an important issue to her. So I think 2025 is a new day. I think the Department of Justice is looking at a lot of these things. And regardless of what happens with this one case, I hope the Supreme Court hears it. It ain't over, no matter what happens with this one. It ain't over.
Just before I let you go, I'm always interested in the reasons people give for doing horrible things. What reason did the court give for rejecting your case, or for saying you don't win?
So the Second Circuit really was tripping over its own feet in what it was saying. It ended up saying things like these objections aren't religious in nature. They're personal beliefs. But the courts have been clear on this. Religion and personal beliefs are not something you could parse out. The government can't say your personal beliefs are not religious. That's not for anyone to say. That's for me to say with my connection with my God in prayer and meditation, how that works for me. So and what did they do? The Second Circuit sat on their hands for almost 2 years, not releasing anything, because people are forgetting about us. People say all the time, Naomi, people say to me, you guys are back to work. No, we're not. So they played that game. They've had this bad ruling. And of interest, there are 3 splits in the circuit courts because of our case. So there are 6 other circuits that have ruled opposite of the
Mm,
Second Circuit in our
mm,
case. And that's
right,
how we're appealing to the Supreme Court, saying you have to resolve these splits. You can't just let
right.
these splits exist in federal court. That's what the Supreme Court actually exists for.
I see.
So,
Heartbreaking. Yeah, I see that on social media. People will
yep.
act like it's all behind us and you guys are back at work, and you'll say laboriously, my heart goes out to all of you when I
Yeah.
see it. No, actually we're not. It's like a horrible backwater of history that you guys got swept into. Like 2025, you are still, firefighters aren't fighting fires, teachers aren't teaching, and police officers aren't keeping the citizens of the city safe for an injection that we all know was a mistake now.
That's right.
Right? It's I'm so
And and
sorry.
it and Naomi, it's not over. We're in a different world today. It's hard, it's long, it's stressful, it's tiring, it's sad, but I do believe we'll be victorious. I don't know how. We got a lot of pots on the stove, and I don't know which one's going to boil first. But stick with us. Follow us at Teachers for Choice. There's a lot of exciting things happening every day right now. Yeah.
Well, you closed it just the way I was hoping. Everyone go to Teachers for Choice on Substack, and also go check out the candidates that Michael has endorsed and that Teachers for Choice have endorsed. And I'm just going to say, remember to support CHD and Teachers for Choice. You get the leadership you give resources to. Everyone needs your money to fight against these giant powers. So don't forget to do that. You know, when you're thinking about the future of New York is kind of the future of America, whether you live here or not. So bear that in mind. And Michael, thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to share before you sign off?
Naomi, I want to thank you so much for your support. No one has supported the unvaccinated firefighters, cops, sanitation workers, medical professionals, teachers. No one has supported us more than you. You don't let it go. You make sure people know the truth. You keep waving our flag. You keep talking about it, and you have such a big platform. It means a lot to us
Thank
because we stand with those who stand with us, and you
you.
stand with us. And thank you so much. We so appreciate you for it.
Well, I'm honored to be in the extended family. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, Mike.
Thank